Hello, this is Superintendent Andy Kowalczyk, and welcome to the January edition of PASD Monthly. I would like to thank the Pinconning Area Schools Board of Education members for their service to our staff and students. January is Board Member Appreciation Month, and we couldn't be happier to have our amazing 7 board members. Their combined talents are a great asset to our schools, staff, and students. If you see one of our board members this month, please tell them thank you. Pinconning Schools will be holding a retreat on January 20th at the Pinconning Township Hall from 8:30 a.m. till 4:30 p.m. to align our strategic goals. All stakeholders are welcome, and you do not need to attend the entire time. Please send me an email if you have any questions. The end of the first semester is January 12th. There is no school on January 15th and half days on the 11th and 12th for exams. In response to parent concerns about student health and well-being, Pinconning Area Schools is partnering with theparentguidance.org to deliver presentations created by licensed therapists. This month's virtual and interactive session is called How to Motivate Your Child. Registration, attendance, and interactions are kept totally anonymous from other viewers. You can register at the site listed or by following the QR code. This month's alumni interview is with Jennifer Millerwise Dyck. Jennifer has worked in many high-profile jobs, including with the United States President and Vice Presidents. If you have suggestions for possible interviews with Pinconning alumni, please send me an email. We're here with Jennifer Millerwise Dyck. Could you please start by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Graduated from Pinconning High School in 1993. I went to Garfield Elementary School, which I don't think is there anymore. I drove by it years ago and it was shuttered up, which was a little sad, but proud alumni. I went to Western Michigan University after graduating from Pinconning, and then moved out to Washington, D.C. about 2 weeks after I graduated from Western, and never really looked back. So I've been out here for a long time.
Oh, that is great. Well, do you have any best memories from your time here at Pinconning? And it could be elementary, could be high school.
Oh, I have so many. I loved high school. I mean, I love school. I had great memories and great friends from elementary school that I remained great friends with all through my high school years too. But I was thinking about this, and some of the top memories are, of course, I think the ones everyone thinks about. Those Friday night football games were always just so much fun. The whole community being there together, seeing all your friends and cheering for them. Homecoming week was always great. End of school. I mean, I really got into volleyball. So we had a great volleyball team, won the state championship while I was there. So I have a lot of memories running through those hallways. It felt like endless running through the hallways of the high school and cleaning the gym floor, running back and forth with boards of wood tied up with towels. And I don't know that that was my best memory, but it's certainly a memory that I have.
Yes. Tell me about your college experience and your current or past careers.
Yeah, I mean, at Western, I ended up doing a major in business and a minor in political science. I think I kind of started really getting the government bug when I was in high school, actually, and I got very involved in student council. And Mrs. Shear was my counselor at the time, and had a great relationship with her. I just really loved her, and she was in charge of student council, and I got really, really involved in that, and kind of got the bug. In fact, my senior year of high school, I actually stopped playing volleyball, which was really time consuming, to focus more and more on student council and what I wanted to do in that position. And so when I got to college, I actually ran for kind of the equivalent of a student council at Western, continued to really enjoy that kind of service. And then that's when I started minoring in political science as well. Something I wish I had spent more time probably focusing on history if I could do it all again. So much of what I do today is thinking about what happened in the past and how we try not to do the wrong things twice, but we seem to as a world, right? We make the same mistakes. So if I could go back, I probably would have focused more on history, not just political science the way I did. But yeah, it did set me up to move to Washington, where I pretty much immediately started getting involved in government.
So some of the careers, you've got some really cool
past jobs. Can you list some of them or talk about a little bit of?
Sure. Yeah, I was very lucky. I think some of it's luck, some of it's just being, a hard worker,
Yep.
is something that gets noticed in Washington. Someone who's willing to come in really early and stay really late and doesn't want to make any money, because that's part of it when you work on Capitol Hill. So my first job in DC, I answered phones for our senator at the time. His name was Spence Abraham, and you kind of, when you first get to DC, if you're working on the Hill, so for the House or the Senate, you pretty much start off either opening mail or answering phones. So I got to answer the phones. And when I was answering the phones, I started paying attention to the office and the different jobs that existed in the Senate office, and trying to figure out what I really wanted to do next. And I really liked what the press secretaries were doing. So the press secretaries are the ones that are handling all the incoming calls from reporters, from newspapers or magazines or TV, radio, everything. Some state, local, Michigan reporters, but then also a lot that were national reporters at the time. I also do a lot of writing, which I've always enjoyed. Going back to my days with Mr. Price, and his English classes kind of gave me the bug for writing as well. And so I started on that path. And my first press secretary job, or press job, I worked for free. So I went from, my first job was answering phones, and then I really wanted to become a press secretary, and it was harder to break into. But there was a guy who was kind of one of the most well-known press secretaries on Capitol Hill at the time, said, look, I'll teach you everything you need to know over a 3-month period of time, and I guarantee you'll get a job as a full press secretary for a member, but I'm not going to pay you. And so I hostessed at a really bad Mexican restaurant, and lived in a group house. I answered an ad in a local newspaper, and I lived with 5 strangers,
Really?
that were doing the same thing. Yeah, because you just don't make very much when you're starting off in DC, and it's expensive. And so I lived in a group house, hostessed, and worked for free for 3 months. And it was Ari Fleischer. He later became the White House press secretary. So as I said, he kind of, back in the day, even before he was that, he was pretty well known in those circles. And he was right. I worked for him for 3 months, and I then got a job as a press secretary. So,
how did Pinconning High School or Pinconning schools prepare you for all of your experiences?
I look back at the classes that really mattered, and some of the activities that I got involved in. There was something, I don't know if it's still there, but it was SAE, it was Students Active in Education. That's when I started going on trips to cities. I, obviously grew up in a small town, loved growing up in a small town, but went to New York City and just fell in love. And I remember we went to Chicago and loved that, and getting to see kind of what city life was like. And it was something I really wanted to do. So that was certainly left a big impression. Also mock trial, Mrs. Halloran. I hope you still do it. That was one of my favorite things. It wasn't until my senior year. I wish I could have done it every year in retrospect, but man, we had fun, and we made it to the States. I mean, I think we may have even come in second. We were way up there against all these fancy private schools, Detroit, and we showed them. It was great.
Nice.
So that was a lot of fun. I remember that was another experience that I certainly have used a lot of the skills that you had to develop in mock trial in my job today. Student council, I've already mentioned, was great. I was thinking about speech class with Mr. Warzinski, something I don't think I did as well in as I should have. And I wish, again, I was giving advice. It's like, pay attention in those classes that really matter in the long run. And then Mr. Price, again, I've talked about him before. He was an amazing English teacher, very focused on grammar, very focused on developing a love of reading the classics, and writing. He was really focused on people honing their writing skills. And I do a lot of writing in my job today. So and I think about it, those probably were the things that were the most impactful: student council, SAE trips, mock trial, speech class. Again, wish I had done better and could do that again. Paid more attention or something. And then English. Yeah, those were.
I think there's probably about 30 years worth of students here that still think of the red and green marks from Mr. Price. I don't know if you remember that, getting those marks
Oh
that
my
everybody
goodness.
wanted. Yeah, it was great. Let's see. Did you plan to do what you're doing now? Like, do you think that was in your mind at all, or it just kind of morphed and
It
turned into
happened,
this?
right? It just kind of happened. I knew I wanted to live in a city. And then because minored in political science and was always interested in government, I knew that that was something I wanted to do. So that made Washington pretty obvious. But no, I mean, when I really was in that first congressional office and I just kind of started observing, because some people work on policy and issues and legislation, I didn't have a real passion for any particular issue at the time. And that's where I thought, kind of really liked what the press secretary was doing. It's more social, very interactive with other people. I like thinking about how to say something in a way that was compelling, how to, sell a concept or an idea. I found really appealing. Again, I liked writing quite a bit. I was never great at math, so it probably was good that I focused in this direction. But I really hadn't thought about it. And then some of it was just luck, working hard, always being reliable, always being willing to do something certainly helped. Being willing to not make a lot of money off in the first couple of years of work, that really helps. Being willing to work for free really helped. But some of it was just getting to know the right people and, kind of helped set me on the path where I ultimately ended up going and working in the White House.
That makes me think that, I mean, the things that you've done, pretty amazing, being in Afghanistan or being in the White House on 9/11, like all these different things. Is there something that so far has been the most memorable? Something that
I mean,
think about?
those were intense memories that I'll never forget, as you can imagine. But yeah, I was in the West Wing on 9/11. I was in the press office is right by the Oval Office. So the West Wing is really small. I think on TV it looks a lot bigger than it is. It's tiny. I mean, it's a house. And it's just like a wing of a house, if you think of it that way. So it's small. And the president wasn't there. So that usually he was traveling. He was actually in Florida reading to school children.
I remember that. Yeah.
And it was so it's always a little bit, it's never casual at the White House, and it's never laid back at the White House. It's always kind of tense, but it's always a little less tense when the president's not there. And the reporters are just basically in the basement underneath the press office, and they have the freedom to come up and down. We have TVs everywhere. And I remember we saw that first plane hit and you thought, oh my gosh, what everybody else thought, right?
Right. Yeah.
Crazy, horrible accident, etc. And then the second one hit, and we were immediately evacuated to the basement of the West Wing, which is called the Navy Mess. It's basically the restaurant that's down there. And then we were sitting there in the Secret Service, watching it all on a small television, or probably 100 of us or something that were down there, maybe less, probably 80. And all of a sudden the Secret Service started saying, all right, we're going to evacuate. We're getting out of here. We're getting out of here. You started hearing there were other planes. And when we got upstairs and started to walk outside, the Secret Service just started screaming, run, run, run.
My gosh.
And you heard people saying, there's a plane, there's another plane. And I remember a Secret Service agent yelled at me, take off your heels and run. So I took off my heels and we all went pouring out the gates. The gates opened, and the gates never open. There's obviously a lot of security there. They opened wide and everybody just went pouring out. And then you saw the smoke from the Pentagon. So, I mean, it was and I went back to work later that day because the president was coming back, but just wandered. Our phones were jammed. So it was hard to get a hold of people. So you really were by yourself. So I just kind of ended up wandering in an odd kind of out of the way route, trying to get back to my house, because you just didn't know what was happening. You didn't know if there were going to be people on the street prepared to, create more chaos, or there were more threats out there. You just heard a lot of rumors of bombs and threats and things.
Right. Yeah.
And so I just wandered until I kind of got to my apartment, and then was able to get on, I think, a hardline phone and figure out that people were trying to recongregate because the president was coming back. So I went back to the White House that early evening. He did a televised address to the American people, and then pretty much didn't stop working for, I think, 14 days. I think it was the first 7 days, if you can remember back, the ABC, NBC, CBS just went with straight news all day. Like there was nothing on but news. And so being in the press office, we pretty much
busy day.
Yeah, it was, and it really just changed everything. It's such an obvious thing to say, but I guess during our time at the White House, it really changed everything in the focus. And that's when I started becoming interested in national security issues. And so I used that to go then work for the vice president, who was very focused on national security issues. It was after the reelection, I went to work at the CIA.
Okay. So, and now, what are you doing now?
Now I work for companies. So
Okay.
I consulted for a couple of years for a consulting firm. So I was focused a lot on crisis and
Okay.
kind of, again, when you say, did you plan it? No, I was an adrenaline junkie, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I liked being on campaigns, and um, there was a lot of crisis that happens when you work the White
Yeah.
House, and certainly at the CIA. And so I ended up honing those skills. And so when I was at a consulting firm, I would do crisis work for other companies, usually entities. So that was fun. But again, it wasn't very family friendly. And then I was married and started thinking about having kids. It's like, okay, got to get out of the
Got a good
crisis
job. Yep.
hamster wheel. And
Yep.
so I started doing more of general public affairs,
Okay.
communications, reputational work. So I worked in-house and ran communications at Walmart for their headquarters, which is down in Arkansas. So I did spend 3 years in Arkansas.
Oh,
I did that for a little while, and now I just consult on my own. So I have my
yeah.
own little LLC, one employee. It's me. I'm
Nice.
head of
Nice.
HR, the head of tech, which is a bad thing that I'm the head of tech, I'm the head of all of it. It's just me.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so I work for different clients and provide public
Cool.
affairs, communications guidance.
Yeah. Well, my last question, you touched on it a little bit, but this is more for our students. Is there anything you wish you did differently in high school or something that maybe would have helped you to do, what you're doing now?
Yeah, I wish I would have studied harder. I was always a decent student.
Yep.
I could have studied more. I wish I would have. I wish I would have really, again, history. I think there's just so much where when you're kids, sometimes you think it's boring. It's not. It's really interesting. Learning how to write well, really important. I'll tell you what, I don't know if you all still offer a typing class, but Mrs. Halloran taught typing, and my kids are still amazed at the fact that I can sit there and type and look at them and talk at the
Yeah.
same time. And I always say that was probably one of the best classes I ever took, because I use it daily.
Yeah.
And it makes my work a lot faster. So if you don't have a typing class, do something to learn how to type.
We do. It's called keyboarding now.
Good. Oh, keyboarding. Okay. Yeah. You don't have typewriter. Well, it used to be typewriters. So,
Yep. Yep.
um, but yeah, I mean, pay attention and try lots of different things. Don't allow yourself to just be involved in sports or just be involved in music or just be involved in clubs. Try to diversify, because you just never know when you're going to like something. Like I said, I kind of went into high school thinking I was just going to run track and play
Yeah.
volleyball and do sports. And I really kind of ended up finding my passion was in
Great.
things like mock trial and student council.
That is awesome. Yes. And we do have mock trial and student council is very active. So, yep, we do still have them.
Great. That's
So,
great. Take advantage of it. I mean, it gets hard. I have to say this to my kids. I mean, man, high school is the time to take advantage of
yeah.
doing something different. Take an elective in an art class if you think that you would like to learn how to draw, or maybe that's something you want to be an architect someday, or whatever it might be. Just it's such a wonderful time to try different things when you do have the ability to try some different classes or join some different clubs and to meet different people. It's a great time in life to do it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be with you, and nothing but great memories of Pinconning High School. So go Spartans.
I would like to highlight some of our amazing students' talents outside of school. Today, we have a student who loves to fish and another who loves to flip. Okay, we're here with Will Zawinski. I would like to start by asking him about his love for fishing.
So I started fishing when I was really young when I moved into my house, and I had a pond behind my house, so I just started fishing with my dad since he's always been fishing.
Have you done any competitions or tournaments in the past?
This summer I entered a walleye competition with my grandpa and my dad, and I haven't done any bass yet, but I hope to do some.
What's your favorite fishing memory?
My favorite fishing memory was probably when I went to Texas this year with my dad to Lake Fork.
What were you fishing for there?
Bass, and then we went to Lake Texoma for striped bass.
Tell me a little bit about school fishing teams.
So we have a few school fishing teams around us in Midland and Freeland that I know of, and all you need is two people or two students and an adult on a boat to fish.
And what is the tournament like? Is it do you have to get a certain number of fish? Is it a certain amount of time?
All right, so there is usually a 5 fish bag. So your top 5 heaviest bass are what you use to try to have the heaviest bag of fish.
So tell me about your social media.
So I have an Instagram called Pond Willie. I post on that kind of frequently whenever I have a trip. And I used to have a YouTube. I'm trying to post more on it, but last time I tried to do one, it was all in time lapse, so that kind of threw it away. But yep,
Great. All right. Thanks, Will.
no problem.
Okay, I'm here with Claire Donahue, who is involved with gymnastics, and I'd like to ask her a few questions. First, Claire, tell us a little bit about your gymnastics life.
Well, every day after school for 5 days a week, I go to Bay Valley Academy in Bay City, Michigan, and I train for gymnastics.
How long have you been doing that?
Since I was like really little, maybe like 3.
3. Where are your competitions at and what level?
I'm a level 10, and that's the highest level you can go before college. My competitions are either, a couple of them are in Michigan, and then we either go to like Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, and then every year we have a travel meet, and this year it's in Florida.
What is your favorite event?
My favorite event would probably have to be either floor bars.
And how about your best event? Is it different? than
No,
one else?
it's either floor bars.
Same, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite memory?
My favorite memory is making it to nationals last year in Oklahoma City.
And what would your hopes be for future gymnastics?
My hopes is to be able to get a scholarship and compete in college.
How about your hands? Do you have any calluses on your hands?
Yeah, my hands have lots of calluses. They hurt really bad all the time.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed January's edition of PASD Monthly, and am excited to see you again in February.